And so I encourage, almost a bit like 5 a day, I encourage, breaking a rule at least once a week. My notion of success would be nearly getting fired once a year.
Hello everybody, this is a really exciting day because I'm here for a Meet the Author with the wonderful Sam Cunniff, and he is the incredible author behind the book, Be More Pirate. Now even the front of the book is different to any other book I've ever seen. I'm sure that was very intentional. But I'm really excited to chat. You're a 21st century pirate in yourself, and you definitely screw business as usual, and that's what we're all about here at Virgin. So you are absolutely the kind of person that I want to sit and natter with. There's so much information in your book. It's quite hard to even know where to start, but so much information that you then actually wrote a second book, How to Be More Pirate. Can you just explain what the two different books are and how you describe them and why people should read them?
This is a love letter to the stuff that I believed in and had slightly lost my way from. And this is me overcoming the imposter syndrome of the success battle. Yeah. The first book had come out, and quite quickly I started receiving messages, and I started to speak to some of them, and they were brilliant. Like the stuff that had been going on, people organising campaigns in their community to get free breakfast for kids. Another guy decided he was going to launch a campaign against fixed odds betting terminals in bookies. If you know anything about that, there's a rule that needs breaking. And this was the result of those conversations and interviews.
Why did you write the book in the first place? Why do you think that individuals and businesses need to be more pirate?
It began as the world's most boring book.
Did you mean it to be the world's most?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. I used to run a business that I adored called Liberty, and it was an organisation that gave platform to young people. And I thought writing a book would be a good next thing to do, a good vehicle. And being mildly dyslexic and challenged me, and not having graduated from any kind of educational base, I thought that would be good. And so I wrote a book about this world that I've been in, of social enterprise, of purpose, of business and change, and all the things that we both passionately believe in. But I tried to do it as the grown-up I thought I was supposed to be. I got 20,000 words in, and it was as boring as it sounds. and I tried to focus group it with the entrepreneurs that I know, the young people that I've always tried to support and champion. And I was reading the first bit, and it was just flat. And one of the young guys who knew me really well said, "Sam, where's all the rocket ships? Where's all the pirates? Where's the way you usually tell stories?" And I started looking into the history of pirates, and I found something that I'd never heard before. And it just suddenly melded this group of people that I believe in terms of the young entrepreneurs coming through, and the generation that I think have been so let down. The idea of change in business, and the tool of business to create change in a way that very little else can. And the missing set of role models, because I think we're in this crisis of leadership.
Well, it is amazing to see that community, maybe we should say crew, that you've developed. That book is testament to the community. We are testament to this community that you developed all through Be More Pirate. We've always been at Virgin all about challenging the status quo. And I think that's why you've got so many advocates here and so many people behind you. And I know that we were involved at the beginning of helping you. Actually, do you want to tell the story of at the very beginning when you came up with a publicity stunt that maybe didn't go so well?
Yes.
Speak from Virgin.
Penguin, soon heading towards launch, told me I'm a priority author. I didn't really understand what that meant, but it turns out I came with no budget to promote it. And they were telling me this in this wonderful meeting where they got in their glorious offices near Victoria Station, with a window the size of a bus. So I was looking out of it, a bit frustrated. And long ago in my dark past, I used to run likelihoods. And all I could think to myself was, I could fly post the out of that window. Imagine, like, the front of this building in my bright pink, it would be so glorious. And then I got a call from Tom Weldon, who's the chief exec, and a man I respect. And he asked me if I'd go in and do a talk. And I said, sure, but you're going to have to pay me a fee. And he said, we're publishing your book, man. And I said, I know, but I need just shy of $2,000. And I said, no, what's it for? And I said, I can't tell you. And I printed out a fake letter from Tom giving me permission to do this thing. I Googled the Penguin logo and stuck it on, and just took a clipboard from the office, and I ordered 3 high-vis vests off the internet, and you can get away with anything in a high-vis vest, it turns out. And we showed up at 6 in the morning and fly posted the office. By the afternoon, it was become very clear that some of the people at Penguin were not as impressed as others. And yeah, I'd heard it very clearly that I might be the first author ever to lose his book on the day the book came out. And I couldn't have believed more. I still don't, that there's a need to bend and break and challenge rules in a responsible way. And that takes us into a place of such discomfort that you have to put your neck in your line and demonstrate what discomfort feels like. And for me, this was really uncomfortable. And so it was clear I had to push on. At 4:20, Richard Branson, Twitter account, tweeted this picture with a statement saying, "I've always believed that one should ask forgiveness over missioning. Being a pirate has never been more important." And by 6 o'clock, it was in the top 100 in the UK.
Well, I'm so glad we're in it together, and that couldn't have been a more pirate way to have launched a book. How do you think people who are in big established companies can cultivate their teams to be more pirate?
Sometimes the way to bend and break the rules is to lay down the foundation of what those rules could look like. Give someone else something to follow. You know, it's the spirit of a mutiny. You know, mutiny is about followership. And the sign of a good mutiny is in other people who want to then follow it. But for a mutiny to work, it has to have fun, it has to have a spirit to it, and it has to have the beginnings of an idea that people can follow.
So true, and every business is slightly different. Every individual is different, but also every business is different. And I suppose if you want to step outside the box,
Yeah.
some businesses the box is very small, and some businesses the box is very big. So your mutiny also has sort of 5 key principles.
Yes.
So I'm going to read each one of them out. Could you give me a bit of information behind why you've chosen these 5?
Of course.
So firstly, challenge the establishment. That can be frightening for people to
Yes. So the simplest one is just, how many people feel they can speak up in every meeting that they're in, and how many people, asking a difficult question, how many people can always say truly how they feel. So that's when we start. And yes, that's the one that we do on a daily basis. And as soon as you do that on a regular basis, you begin to see how paper thin the rules are. And then the empowerment comes on the other side of it.
And it's empowering because once one person does it, the next one feels they can, and it's that never-ending thing where it suddenly is great for everybody. Okay, number 2, be creative, innovative, and disruptive.
Breaking the rules alone doesn't make you a pirate. There has to be a philosophy, and there has to be a philosophy of exactly that, a creative, positive, an act that includes others, an act that makes things better than they were before, an act that isn't just of your own creation, but an act that's made for us, by us. And so without that, then you don't manage to graduate to piracy.
Be fiercely independent.
Rarely have we been in an organisation, excluding present company, where conformity is the thing that gets rewarded, right? So there's a fight going on. So our ability to resist groupthink, and our ability to resist going with the norm, our ability to not be in the in-group is so hard because the in-group is fundamental to survival. But every now and then it's so necessary. So that notion of independence has to have a degree of fierceness to it and a willingness to step into the out-group every now and then. But I wouldn't say it's a permanent state, because it's exhausting and difficult. So you need your people, but you need to have an ability to be independent.
Number 4, lead by principles, be honest about profit.
There's a false fight that's presented, which is purpose versus profit. And I don't think that's the right fight. I think they're much closer linked. I think the fight more often is about process, actually. I mean, process is the thing you need to keep a watch over. But I think the evolution of the conversation that we're having around purpose will become transparency. Because there shouldn't be a place where there's, I think the fight is right for good business, and I think you champion that extraordinarily well. But to a degree, that also allows space for bad business. And because bad business is more often than not business as normal, one day my hope would be there's a place where business is transparent and there's no space for good and bad. And if we get to that, it will be because of the spirit and processes of transparency. There's not loopholes, there's not havens, there's not things to hide behind, where we have to be very clear about what it is that we do. And the notion of good and bad will then be reduced.
And then lastly, highly talented but underappreciated.
We're in a paradigm of what leadership means, and I think largely we're familiar with the extrinsic notion of leadership, somebody on high being inspiring and tell us what to do. I'm pretty sure the most important kind of leadership there is at the moment is the intrinsic leadership, the one that gets us out of bed when we feel like we want to stay in bed quiet. That's the leadership I think that matters most now, right? I think the revolution is in 9 billion of us, and it's going to be inside us.
We talk a lot here about the individual purpose. So it's all very well having we're watching do purpose. But every individual in the company needs to have that reason why they're getting out of bed in the morning. And if you can link that reason to the overarching purpose of the company, that's the most amazing thing that you can do. Everyone realise that they're getting that bigger moment coming to work. It's not just about a day job, they're working for such a bigger thing.
It's interesting going through those 5 things. I've forgotten that. In the book I call them rebel, reorganize, redistribute, repower, then retell. And it's because every business book I'd ever read has like a acronym model in the middle of it. And I was like, I've got to have one of those. I either need a triangle or an acronym, right? It wouldn't be right. But also because it's then the 5 R.
How do you think you balance the need for rebellious thinking with also the need for stability and mismanagement?
Well, with Scarlett, firstly, we're just going to take my coat, forget a bit more. She got in trouble with a teacher, and so we had to deal with that one. And I took Scarlett to meet Millicent Fawcett, as the statue of Millicent Fawcett arrived shortly after the book was published. I could point at Millicent Fawcett and say, here's a woman that did the wrong thing. Like, unequivocally, the wrong thing. Yet, we're incredibly grateful for her doing the wrong thing. And there's a moment for all of us when doing the wrong thing will become the right thing. And there is an uncertainty or a moral relativism that transcends the time that we're in, right? The notion of rule comes etymologically from the linear, straight line, yet nobody's life is a straight line. So rules can't be made for life. They have to be updated. And Scarlett began to get that this woman broke the rules, risked everything for the new rules that she could make. Scarlett looks up to Greta Thunberg massively, who's clearly done the wrong thing, like getting 4 million kids to bunk off school. Like, there's no way that's the right thing to do. There's no way that's going to be judged as the wrong thing to do. And so in that space, we have to really be able to embrace a paradox. And change is an absolute paradox, because change forces us to move into the novel and the new. And at exactly the moment that you really are in the unknown and the new, you will reach for what's known. And we all do it. As soon as we're out of depth, we will go for the unfamiliar. There's a really good study at King's College. People were given a synthesis of an experience of uncertainty and the opportunity to end the uncertainty by giving themselves an electric shock. Within 35 minutes, 75% of people are giving themselves an electric shock. No one made the hour. We hate uncertainty so much, we will experience pain. And you know that because it's borne out in studies of health diagnosis. We prefer the negative health diagnosis. You know, if you've ever been transports running late, if it says your plane or train is delayed, it says 2 hours, no problem. Our psychology largely means that we're divided between attract and avoid. But the world is no longer that binary. And our opportunity, or the invitation, I think, is to be able to withstand the middle and be available a little bit more. And that often feels like down. Down's never felt good. But I think that's the bit, right? That's the nuance. We are in a nuanced world, in a really deeply complex world. Simple answers are typically, largely going to be lies. There is not a simple answer to what we've got. And increasingly, the things we think are problems are actually paradoxes. And how we get our heads around that, and we've all grown up to learn binary, is going to be pretty tough. But it's what leadership, I think, is trying to needs to move towards.
Yeah, and I've got really into the VUCA or VUCA.
Vodka sounds more fun. I always say, yeah.
That concept of leadership, when it really is a volatile and complex and uncertain and ambiguous world that we live in. Yeah. Do you think that the pirates that you talked about, do you think they were the first original buffer leaders?
Yeah, I say yes, of course. Yeah, totally. But I think there's a continuum. I didn't know this completely when I'd written the book, but I think really on the long arc of the English working class, and it begins with the English working class, and then the fight for equality really spans out around the whole world. But the Chartists and the Levelers began a conversation that then transcends to the early conversations around democracy. Then that breaks off, and you've got the whole of Europe worried about revolution, but not revolution, about fairness, right? We were pre-democratic in these very autocratic and unfair times. The pirate principles are then found in the proto-literary feminist circles of London. We know that the pirates were working with the founding fathers of democracy in America. The principles of the Pirate Code are found in the forming principles of the trade union. And the reason why I think it's distinct is in the VUCA framework, the U that stands for uncertainty is distinct from the others because it's the one that's in emotion. And there's something in that I think is true to piracy, as unlike anything else, because there was values-based decision making. You've seen the stuff, right? The Pirate Code, it wasn't exhaustive. Here are the things that we believe in that we're willing to fight and die on. After that, I trust you, and I believe in you to make the right decisions. And so that, what we would now call emotional intelligence, but there was more than just the cognitive right or wrong. There was a degree of openness and a sense of what mattered was of the body and the brain and the heart. And I think in that, they're really distinct. And
at Virgin, we strive every day to change business for good. How, on hearing that, do you think we should go about developing our own pirate code?
To draw a pirate metaphor, I will suggest that the success of this team is like a river or an ocean, and the current is already there. The current is all your reputation, your future opportunity, the talent of the team. So there's a lot of stuff that you can't do much about. Current is already flowing. So if you ask the team, one way to increase the current and your chances of success would be to remove the rocks that are under the water. Like, what are they going to be? A team where everyone says smaller and different things is a group of individuals, and they're reaching for the thing that they can lift up on their own. A team who says largely the same thing is a team reaching for the large boulder that only their combined strength will pull out from the water that will have the greatest effect on the increased set of current. But if you have 2 or 3 things, you have the beginning of a code that will really make a difference. If those things are things that people will stay here for, or fight for, and that will make a difference for others, then you have something more solid.
I totally love that, and I hope we were writing that down for you so I could go away and do that. At the beginning, you mentioned that you got thousands of emails from people after you'd written the book.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about this bit because I have someone in the room who was one of the first people to email you.
Yes.
Unbelievable, phenomenal what you did.
A copy of Be More Pirate landed in my lap. At the same time, I was in the middle of this kind of awful moment in my personal life where one of my really close friends had been detained by the Home Office. Through a variety of missed pieces of paper and things like this, she found herself in a situation where the UK government, the Home Office, were telling her she had to go back to a country that she didn't know. And then this book lands in my lap. Over a period of months, through the inspiration in Sam's book, we built this community, we scaled this community to have thousands of people on her side. And I get this phone call from her. She's like, Nat, we don't need to go to court. And I thought she just meant, we don't need to go to court next week. Like, it's been postponed, we've got a bit more time. And she was like, no, we don't need to go to court. I've been given leave to remain. I just burst into tears. And it was just this kind of crazy culmination of this movement that we built and an incredible, the support from the community. And I kind of look back at it now and I'm still a little bit like, I can't believe we actually did it.
It's so amazing.
On the completion of the second book, hoping that I'd have discovered some really clever framework for why this thing's been so successful. It was just that in lots of the instances, people use the word pirate as a proxy for permission. And when they'd simply say, right, a Be More Pirate, I'm taking the pirate, we really do was just gave yourself permission to do something you already knew exactly what to do. There's this notion that you can step into this other persona of being a pirate. So I'll just take the risk that on a normal day, on a Wednesday, I wouldn't do this. But today I will.
Yeah.
I'll give myself permission to be in that bowl. It's really about fairness, which is something that we'll all fight for ultimately. But we all have a very different idea of what fair is. Well, we all know what it feels like when something's not fair. We'll usually stand for it, or we won't stand for it, as you do.
Sam, what's next for you?
I'm now a scientist, so I'm a pirate scientist. As you can tell, clearly live like a scientist. I lead the world's largest ever research study into the human effects of uncertainty. 23,000 people have been through the research that we run. It's backed by University College London, a specialist lab called Decision Making Uncertainty Centre. I've found these remarkable stories that follow on from these of people who've been rewired, ex-refugees who are now CEOs, ex-gang leaders, now business leaders, people who've been through the justice system or gender transition. And across them all, I found a very consistent set of patterns. I've got some backup from Netflix to turn it into a hybrid of documentary and psychological intervention. And I can scientifically move someone's uncertain tolerance, which is a psychological trait, by about 35% by getting them to watch a rather engaging show. Yeah, and trying to now see if we can change the world's relationship, because it can't be that uncertainty is the problem. And I think that's the mistake I've made for a long time, or that we made. Uncertainty is too fundamental to life and our success, and every single one of us, every single one of your best stories that you tell has a relationship with the unknown, right? Our best stories that we tell when we're drunk, they were never the predictable ones, were they? Like, there's an element of risk in overcoming it. And so the opportunity is to change our relationship with uncertainty, and bizarrely, I've found a way to do it.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much, Sam.
But